Welcome to our next lesson about describing the setting. This is lesson 2. Let's get going. So your goal today is I can describe the setting of a text, and your success criteria, you'll know you succeeded if you know the setting is the place and the time. You can find and describe the place and the time with the text with your teacher, and then you can find and describe the correct place and time on your own. Let's talk about some times, some wins. The most important 3 times when thinking about this setting are the past, the present, and the future. The past is anything that's already happened, things like yesterday, last week, or 100 years ago. The present is present day, anything that could happen right now or that is happening right now, today, this exact moment, or at this time in history. Future means something that has not happened yet. Could be as soon as tomorrow or next month, or we could be talking about in 100 years. I want you to pause the video here and try to match my pictures with the appropriate times, the past, the present, and the future. Take a look there. So let's take a look. This is Chicago in the present day. This is what Chicago looks right now. This here looks like a pretty futuristic city, a city that has not been built yet. It's got a big old alien ship and some crazy buildings. This down here looks like an alien planet that no one's ever visited. That seems like a place that you could get to in the future. Down here at the bottom, I have some knights fighting outside a castle. It doesn't really happen anymore. That's something that I would associate with the past. Here's some kids in an elementary school. They're learning about things right now. It's the present day. Up here we have some cowboys. Cowboys were around in the past. We got this old-timey photo. Let's do one more warm-up game here. Pause the video and see if you can find the where words. Where are some places a story could be set in my little cloud here? I'm seeing an office, a ship, the ocean, inside, a country, a state, a city, a house, a room, a cave, and outside. So the other words are actually times, things like evening, morning, tomorrow. What week is it? The past, the future, the present, yesterday. What year is it? What day is it? Or what month is it? All right, so now we're going to look at some text. I'll do, then you do, together with me, and then you do on your own. So first off, we see I find and describe the place and time in a text with my teacher. Here's a reading that I'm going to do. To understand this reading, you'll want to know some words. Asteroid, that's a big rock in outer space. To navigate, that means to steer something or direct something. Cuffs are things that go around your wrists, so these would be handcuffs, and they're designed to keep you in one place. You'll want to know those words for today's reading. Here we go. Read and let's think about the setting of this story. Vance Powers grabbed the control stick. Up until now, he had been a prisoner on this spaceship. But even the captain knew that Vance was the only one who could navigate through an asteroid belt. Quick, take these laser cuffs off. The captain and the guard looked at one another hesitantly. Boom! The ship skidded off a large asteroid. Now, take the cuffs off. There's no time. Vance shouted at the men. The captain gave the guard a slight nod. The guard waved with a magnetic key over the laser cuffs on Vance's wrists. The cuffs powered down and fell off Vance's wrists. Suddenly, Vance had full control of his arms again. Vance tested the movement of his arms by disarming the guard and slapping the laser cuffs on him in one swift motion. Vance Powers was back. So we read that text, and now we're going to pause and look for clues. What are some details that might help me understand where we are as we read? So I'm looking for places, some things that might tell me some places. I see that we are on a spaceship. That's pretty crucial. And we're going through an asteroid belt. In other words, a place where there's a lot of rocks in space. I feel like that's kind of what I need to know. So some details that might help us understand where we are would be a spaceship and an asteroid belt. So now it says, describe the place in a sentence. So I'm going to use those details that I underlined in my description. The story takes place is a great way to start any writing about a setting. It's where it happens. The story takes place on a spaceship in an asteroid belt. Next, I need to tell the reader what text details told the place that the story was set. So what did I use? Well, I already underlined them, but I'm going to write a sentence to tell about them anyway. So I wrote, the text mentions that Vance is a prisoner on a spaceship, right there in the text, and that he's in danger of hitting asteroids. So I'm talking about he skidded off a large asteroid. So that tells me he's on a spaceship in an asteroid belt. I might even add something like he's in outer space. When reading a text, we're going to pause and look for clues about when we are as we read. I'm going to underline those as well. Basically, what we want to do is find the most important thing is the present, past, or the future. Are there details about technology or clothing or ways of talking that only people in the past or the present or the future used? So in this story, the big clue is the technology. There's things like a spaceship. We don't really have very many spaceships right now, and they don't go very far. They wouldn't take you to an asteroid belt. A magnetic key and laser cuffs. A control stick. These are all things that I would associate with technology to get me around outer space, or technology that has not been invented yet. So when I describe the time, I'm going to talk about the future. So this story takes place in the future, and in fact, I'm going to update that to say the distant future. Because the distant future means a long time from now. I don't think this is going to happen tomorrow. I think it's going to happen, if it ever happens at all, in a very long time. It'll be a long time before we have spaceships. Now I need to write what details told me when the story was set. So I can tell it's the future. Again, I'm kind of referring to my answer. It's the future because there are futuristic technologies like laser cuffs and a spaceship in the story which haven't been invented yet. So again, when we look at a text to find out if it's the past, the present, or the future, we want to look at the way people talk or the technologies or clothing that they have to see if it's stuff that hasn't been invented or is stuff we use now or stuff that people used or said back in the past. So on this text, I'm going to ask you to try it before I do. So you're going to get a chance, and then you'll see and compare with my ideas. So before we read, you'll need to know that apologetically means saying something in a way that means sorry. And a librarian is a person who recommends and lends books. So apologetically and a librarian. Alex shut the lid to his laptop with a loud clap. Some of the people sitting at the tables near him looked up from their books and gave him annoyed looks. Alex realized that he had disturbed them and held up his hand apologetically. The librarian turned toward him and shushed him loudly, perhaps louder than the noise that he had made. Alex put the laptop in his bag and began walking toward the door. He held his head down low. So, I want you to take a look at the text that I just read and look for clues. What are some details that might help us understand where we are as we read? Once you've found the clues, pause the video and try to answer my questions. Describe the place in a sentence and what text details told you the place in the story was set. You can use my sentence stems to help you get started. This story takes place in, and I can tell this is true because. So I said, the story takes place in a library. And I can tell this is true because there is a librarian. And the people around the main character are mad that he wasn't quiet like you should be in the library. Now I want you to pause and look for clues again. What are some details that might help you understand when we are reading? So we're looking for technology or ways of speaking that might tell us, is this something that happened a long time ago? Is this something that could happen today, in the present? Or is it something that could happen only in many years? In other words, is it the past, the present, or the future? Go ahead and describe the time in a sentence. You can say that it's the past, the present, and the future. And then you can say why you chose that. How can you tell? So this story is set in the present, and I can tell this because there are laptops, which we have now, but there's no other evidence of it being the past or the future. There's no one talking in ways that people wouldn't talk now, or using technologies like horse-drawn carriages or spaceships that I would find in the past or the future. So this is really a present-day text. Okay, this is your text. I need to know where and when this is set. In order to understand this text, you will want to know the following things. A squire, that's a knight's helper. He's this guy right here. He helps a knight. And a knight is, of course, one of these guys from medieval times who has a sword and armor and a horse. A saddle is the seat on a horse's back. This guy is riding in a cool red saddle. A bridle is what you use to guide a horse. This guy's got his bridle in one hand there. He's guiding the horse with it. And the armor is your metal covering on your body for protection if you're a knight. These guys both are wearing different kinds of armor. So listen as I read, and then it's going to be your job, your exit ticket today, is to tell me the place and the time, and tell me why you think so. Sir Anders frowned at his squire, Toby. Toby looked back worriedly. He was eager to please Sir Anders, but he didn't know how. Well, Toby, do you want me to put the saddle on myself? A bolt of realization struck Toby. He grabbed a saddle off the wall and began apologizing. Why, of course not, Sir Anders. What was I thinking? Toby awkwardly tried to get the saddle on Sir Anders' white stallion. Let me just grab the belt here and, Toby was muttering to himself when Sir Anders' horse turned suddenly and knocked him into a pile of hay. Sir Anders could not help but to crack a slight smile at this scene. As Toby brushed off the hay, Sir Anders consoled him. He knows that you're scared, Toby. Grab the bridle off the wall, help me remove my armor, and I'll show you how it's done. Here's your exit ticket. You need to tell me where and when this story takes place. I started it off for you. You can type your answers or write them down on a whiteboard and then come share them with me or your teacher. And if it's after 9 o'clock, then go ahead and email and get started on today's assignment on Canvas.